Hello book besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ash and you are watching Smokedshelves. So hello, welcome. I have the start of a sort of new but kind of spin-off series for my I read the reading vlog situation. So for the first episode, installment, whatever you want to call it, for this series, which is I Finally Read, that's the working title that I've got. It's like I Finally Read X series because I only started really reading compared to the way I used to read back in middle school and high school, where I barely read because I just didn't have time. So reading is a very recent endeavor of mine, and that means basically that I haven't read any of those popular series. This is my way to catch up with a bunch of earlier releases, just general hyped series that have been released but I didn't get to when they were first coming out, and now they're finished or many books in, and I just want to catch up to understand the hype, really. And so the first installment for this I Finally Read vlog series is the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. If you don't know, it's the 3 books that are, let's make sure I don't mess this up, Get a Life Chloe Brown, Take a Hint Dani Brown, and Actor Age Eve Brown. So those are the 3 books that I'm hoping to read with this vlog. I have all 3 of them downloaded on Scribd right now, and they are my books to read while I am doing chores, basically. And so yeah, let's just get into the first book. So Get a Life Chloe Brown. Let's talk. I am just over halfway through at this point, and I am absolutely adoring it. Like 5 stars kind of material. It's so incredible. Let's try to rationalize the sheer enjoyment I'm getting for the series so far. Chloe Brown and Red, they are incredible. I love the concept that starts the premise of this book, of being like Chloe has a near-death experience and sees her life flash before her eyes and just wants to make her life, you know, more exciting in a way. So she wants to go do things that, since her chronic illness and chronic pain has kicked in, she hasn't really been able to do. And so she enlists the help of her building superintendent, and the 2 of them form a bond from there. And I've been seeing hype for this book for the 2-3 years now that it's been out for, and I've been meaning to pick it up, and it's been getting pushed off. And then I bought the limited editions that are the nice fancy hardcover books, and I've still been pushing it off. That was really what kickstarted me into reading this, and I'm so glad it did, because I am really enjoying this so much. I love Chloe and her ability to just take what she has with stride. She is truly a feat, and she reminds me so much of myself as someone with chronic pain and chronic illness. And I really love her for how she works around her pain as much as she can. She's very stubborn like I am, so I really feel her on that. And yeah, I'm at the 55-60% mark, so I assume there's gonna be more conflict going on. We had our first little, like, steep little obstacle. Like, in general, the 2 of them, I really appreciate how Talia Hibbert has written them as 2 very complete people with their separate lives that have just come together and complement each other. And they're not really changing each other in a way, but they are like complementing the small gaps, you know. I feel like often in romance, when we see the main character and the love interest, there's a lot of like, you often see like their entire lives just become surrounding their love interest. But in this book so far, it's really, they are just there to help each other. And there's a line where Red just basically said, like, I just want to be there to make her feel happy, and I'm like, that's exactly the kind of romance I'm looking for. So I'm really enjoying this so far. Yeah, I will check back in when I have final thoughts on the book. Okay, so I have an update for Get a Life Chloe Brown. I have in fact finished it. My thoughts are a little bit blurred since it has been a while since I've finished this, like a good week or so, a couple weeks at this point actually. Oops. But what I can say is that I gave it 4 stars. I really did enjoy this. I definitely see why people love these books, and I'm glad to say that my first Talia Hibbert book did not disappoint. I didn't end up giving it 5 stars, mostly just because I didn't love the conflict that occurred that caused them to break up for a little bit. I'm gonna put spoilers down here for now. Basically, to those that have read this book, you know where I'm kind of going with this, I assume, but the love interest, Red, he goes to therapy partway through the book because he has had some previous bad experiences and toxic ex-partner and things like that. So you know that he's working on things, and you know Chloe is, I guess, getting her life together, right? So these two are connecting and they're having a good time, and like really nothing's going wrong. They're having a really good relationship once they move past their like initial awkwardness, initial like tension, I guess. It wasn't really a hate or a rival type situation, but just tension, misunderstandings. And so you're like, cool, great. What is gonna be the third? I really thought it was going to be like, because of him moving, I thought she was gonna get all upset with that, but that wasn't even the problem, which is fair. Like, that is not something you would get upset about as a reasonable person. Most people understand that you're gonna want to move on jobs, and she was really supportive of him going for his art career, right? So that's not the worry. Like I said, they're working on themselves, they're getting better, they're trying to be good people, and then all of a sudden they both undo all of it when they had their argument that caused them to break up. It just felt so out of left field and kind of out of character from where they were, which, like, I understand progress is not linear and you can't expect that, but it feels like they went back to like before the beginning themselves, and like at this point the argument kind of faded from my mind, so I don't remember fully what the argument was, but it has something to do with her list and him being on it, and neither of them would hear each other out, like, at all. So they ended up just not talking for like 4 or 5 chapters just because they wouldn't listen to each other, and they both had like panic attacks basically, which is totally fair. They both freaked out, and that's totally fair, and it happens. And I understand wanting to step away for a hot second, but he tried to talk to her after. He was like, fuck, I realized I fucked up. I recognize that I've basically just undone some work that I've been working on, and I want to fix it. And she just would not listen to him. And like, I get it. I get being upset, but I felt like it dragged on for a really long time. So it wasn't my favorite. It kind of just felt like they undid all the progress that they did. I know, like, in real life that's a realistic thing that's going to happen. You know, you wouldn't expect that to be kind of the thing going on here. So yeah, I didn't love that as a conflict for them, but in the end it was fine. They both recognized like, hey, we fucked up. Here's how not to have this happen again in the future, because we don't want to have to worry about potentially upsetting each other and restarting from like ground zero every time. So I appreciate that they went back and fixed it in the end after it all occurred. It just kind of was not my favorite type of conflict to imbue on these characters. But overall, I really did enjoy them and their relationship and the growth, and I really, 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 really relate to Chloe. Her chronic health stuff really hits close to home, and I totally feel for her and how she lives her day and her concerns and her worries, and just, I really get where she comes from with a lot of her life and how she approaches it, because it is hard to like have friends when you constantly cancel or are feeling like shit all the time. It really sucks. But I appreciate that Talia wrote people, you know, that stuff by her side, and how she met, like Chloe met new people within the book that were willing to work with her. I appreciate that. And yeah, so definitely mixed bag with my thoughts and feelings, but overall I really, really appreciated and enjoyed this story, and hence the 4 stars. And while it's definitely not a new favorite of mine, I really loved it. I definitely highly recommend, and I'm really excited to move on to Take a Hint, Dani Brown next. I am glad I remember that name, because I thought I was about to mess that up like 10 times. Let's just jump into my check-in for Take a Hint, Dani Brown, because it's not really a check-in. I have finished the book. It has been a few days, so bear with me and my memory on it. This is a book that I was like, I can see why this series has so much love over on Bookstagram and Booktube and Book Talk, just everywhere. I can see why there's so much hype for it. I can see why Talia Hibbert is such a favorite romance writer for a lot of people. I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely adored it. Dani and Zaf were my favorite coupling of the 3 books. So spoiler that I finished Eve, but Dani and Zaf were my favorite coupling of the 3 books, and I think they just worked so well with each other, and I love Zaf, and Zaf's perspective was incredible. Obviously, like when you do fake dating, there's a little bit of suspense in the situation, but I just find it so tongue-in-cheek when it's like, when a character is a big romance reader, because they're like, oh, I know this is so cliche and yet let's still do it. And that's exactly what happened here, because Zaf, he is the one that reads romance, and I love that. I love that he was very in touch with his emotions, and he was very much the one to be like, you need to work on your feelings and be able to explain it, and like having mental health issues does not make you a weak person. And I love that kind of rep. And just his backstory was so heartbreaking, and I just loved him and his family. And if I could get like a little novella or just a book of Zaf and his family interacting, I would. I loved him. He was so great. Those 2 of them obviously were my favorite ones. I love the buy from Dani. I love that she's an ex that she has like worked out her issues with and they can move on together, because a lot of people have exes that they're still friends with after they break up. Like if you end up on good terms, mostly. I mean, I know they weren't really, but regardless, it was nice to see her connect with her ex and be like, look, I'm sorry I did this to you. I didn't know better. I didn't give you the shot that you probably deserved, and I'm working on myself, basically. I think a big focus on, at least these first two books, is that there's a big emphasis on her, Talia Hibbert's characters, working on themselves as well. You know, like not just growing as a couple, but growing like on their own and being able to like recognize this is where my faults are and here's how I can be a better human. And I love that. And obviously like third act conflicts aren't always my favorite. This one felt believable because of the fact that we know Dani just has heartbreaking issues from her previous relationships where she can't really trust her partner. So it really worked out, and it felt like it made sense for the two of them. And she was one that kind of was like, oh shit, I fucked up. I need to fix this. Not Zaf. Like I appreciate that Dani was one to make the effort to go back and fix the issue. And I really liked it. I just really liked this book. Obviously it's a 5-star. One of my favorite romances in a while, which is crazy because I feel like I've been reading a lot of romances. So yeah, that is my like kind of cohesive thoughts on Dick and Dani Brown. Like I said, this is the book that has made me honestly fall in love with the series and made me really happy to read the next one. This is a book that made me really open my eyes to Talia Hibbert and makes me want to read more of her stuff, and I have ideas on where I want to start, basically. Yes, that is the update for Dick and Dani Brown. Let's move on to the final book in this I finally read video. Surprise, surprise, obviously not. It is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. Where do I begin? I had also finished this one, but it is the most fresh. I only finished it yesterday, 2 days ago at this point, so not long ago. My thoughts are a lot more prevalent in my mind still, but this one, I know I was saying I appreciate Talia Hibbert for putting in like a lot of like personal growth in terms of mental health and just even like relationship wise, like understanding your emotions and stuff. And I think this one like stepped it up in the sense that we had Eve kind of just coming to terms with her potentially being autistic, and I'm not autistic myself, so I can't say on the rep between Eve and Jacob, but I love the way Talia like portrayed both of them, and honestly just portrayed Eve's struggle for kind of realizing it as an adult, because a few of my close friends have been going through diagnoses themselves right now to try to see if they're autistic, because autism in women is so underdiagnosed. And as someone who did psychology in undergrad, I recognize how underprevalent the diagnosis for women is. It's great to see that she's like coming to terms with potentially she could be like have a mild case, and I really appreciate that the way Eve went about doing her like diagnosis was very unofficial, because it's very common, and she's like, oh, I'm happy with what I've got here. I don't really feel like going further and doing the actual diagnostic process, because number one, it is very long, it's tedious, it's hard to do, but also like that's not everyone's goal. Sometimes I just want to be like, oh yeah, I can see myself in that. So I really appreciated that with Eve, just on a separate little like, hey, this might be a thing going on. And I appreciated Jacob's rep. Obviously I can't speak to it, like I said. I just loved it. It was really well done. I haven't even said the rating. I give this one 4 stars, so not as high up as Danica Brown. Dani and Zaf were my favorite ones. They hold my heart with a 5-star, rightfully so. Chloe and Eve, I like them a lot, just not 5-star for me, just a few things here and there. But for this one, I will say I really appreciated the conflict in this one too. I think you can tell these are newer. I think the conflicts got more sensible, if that makes sense. That's not the right word, but they make more sense and aren't so out of left field. Like I feel like Chloe Brown was kind of out of left field, in my opinion. Like I said, with the whole, kind of felt like they were going 2 steps back. For this one, I kind of appreciate that it was an external thing. Eve should have kind of like toughened up a little bit early on and said something, but regardless, I a lot more appreciate that this was an external conflict, being like, hi, you kind of have no power over the breakup, but let's work through it together, which they kind of did and they kind of didn't. It's complicated if you haven't read it, but if you read it, you know what I mean. I also appreciate that both of them went to like back to each other to be like, we shouldn't have listened to what other people around us were telling us to do. But overall, I appreciated it. It just wasn't a 5-star. You know, sometimes when you're just like, oh, I can tell that this is like good, but not a fave. That's how it felt with Eve. But honestly, it was good overall. And yeah, I appreciate it. Let's just go into like wrap up thoughts of the whole trilogy, because I can't believe I just read all 3 books in like the span of a month, not even. What am I thinking? I personally think this is a very successful I finally read first installment. I love Talia Hibbert now. I get the hype. I obviously would need to read more before I would consider her a favorite author, but I get it. I really get why people like her writing, and I get why she's so popular as an author in romance. And I know she has a massive backlist, and I cannot wait to go back and read some more. I have a couple audiobooks downloaded already. I'm sure I'll end up buying a few more. But yeah, her stories are so fast-paced in a good way. You know, they're really easy just to like binge through, honestly. Usually I'm not the type of person to want to read something like this back to back to back. I don't always read series like that. I try not to, actually, because then you feel kind of burnt out with the material. But her stuff, I don't know, it was just so fun. I really enjoyed it, and I really truly do get the hype. I understand why the Brown Sisters trilogy is so beloved. I think these are just great, diverse romance books. Like from Chloe Brown, we have Chronic Illness and Chronic Pain. Obviously we have all three of them are Black leads, but we have Chronic Illness and Chronic Pain for that one. We have IREP from Dani, and we have Anxiety Rep from Zaf, and maybe PTSD. I don't think they say it outright, but he kind of had PTSD/depression in the past before the book starts. We have Autistic Rep between Eve and Jacob, and all around we have Pan Rep from their grandmother, who I love, by the way. I would love to know more about her and her girlfriend. But it's great. They're really great. I love them. I don't know how many times I can say that. I do love them. I'm glad that I was finally able to read them and finally got over my fear of reading them. So that is my final thoughts on the series. I just have to say, like, if you're hesitant to pick them up because of the hype, just do it. I think you will appreciate it. I think you will fall in love with them. I know people have different opinions on which one they like the most, but I feel like maybe most people like Dani Brown the most. I could be wrong. It feels like that's the consensus. I don't know. That was my favorite of the three. Chloe got 4 stars, Dani got 5 stars, and Eve got 4 stars. But overall, I love the series. It's a solid like 4.5 star series. Yeah, that's everything. Those are my thoughts. Let's fully close out the video now. If you like this video, please give this video a big fat like down below. Comment down below if you read the series, which of the 3 girls are your favorite, which book was your favorite of the 3. Do you agree with me that Dani is the best? Do you not? Do you like Eve more? Do you like Chloe more? Let me know if you read them. If you haven't read them, have I convinced you to pick it up? I would love to know that. It's worth it if you do, and I'd love to see if anyone picks it up because of this video. And then finally, please consider subscribing. It would mean the absolute world to me if you did. I really do hope for you to stick around and see what I've got going on next. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. I'm gonna get going now. I will see you in my next video. Bye.